Why does it feel like gay guys appreciate me more than straight girls do? Yeah, look, okay, I'm again, like, I joke about this, but genuinely, my experiences with straight women have consistently been, like, pretty negative. I just think the issue is that, like, I don't know. It really does feel like, and this isn't all of them, but it really does feel like a lot of straight women don't like guys that much. They just like a lot of the social prestige and status associated with being with a guy, but they don't seem to like lust after guys. That's the thing, okay? Because a lot of people do this thing where it's like, you know, women don't actually like sex the same way, and women don't like looking at dicks or whatever. And it's like, maybe you're women, okay? I don't want to be with a chick who's like, oh, sex time? Okay, like if I'm gonna be with a chick, she has to be a disgusting hornball like me. I'm not like I'm not having a girlfriend who's like fucking restrained on the issue, right? But a lot of straight women seem, I think a lot of it is like internalized misogyny or sex shaming or whatever, because like all women were like beaten by their moms growing up and telling them that like all men are terrible, like never put out for men because they'll disrespect you the moment you put out for them. So like as a consequence of this trauma, it makes them incredibly boring and difficult to deal with or whatever. I don't know why being bi seems to fix this, and it probably doesn't for a lot of them, but yeah, I don't know. It's very annoying. I would never want to be in a relationship with a person who felt like it's not even like sex is a chore. I just like, you know, they got to be there for that shit, man. Could be that a lot more people are asexual than they realize. Yeah, this is a big like dead bedroom trope where a girl will put out a lot, and then when they get married, they'll all of a sudden stop. And it turns out the only reason they were putting up with sex was because they were trying to get into a marriage. You know, man, that sucks. Hey guys, I'm hitting you guys with the big T truth here, okay? For one, fuck before marriage. Seriously, you don't know what's going to go wrong if you don't. And for two, if it ever feels like a person that you're with is withholding sex from you or being dishonest about their sex drive or whatever, massive red flag. Talk to them directly. Because there are so many like fucking posts in the r/sex subreddit when my feed is blighted enough to get those recommended to it, where it's like, hey, I have the perfect relationship, except we have sex once every 3 months, and every time I bring up sex, which is every other day, she says she has a headache. And it's like, fuck, dude. God damn, man. Is it over for the heteros? It was a long time ago. Yeah, that makes sense, Cutie with a Great Sword. I'm being a little essentialist when I say, like, all straight. It's not all straight women, but it is definitely an issue that I see more with straight women. Maybe being bi or pan or whatever tends to, like, there's a correlation between that and having a more liberated attitude towards sex, so women who are bi or pan are more likely to not buy into the... Like, I imagine it'd be pretty difficult to be a pan woman who also feels like all that like internalized self-hate about being sexual or whatever, because like you're being pan, like you've already sort of crossed one barrier. Not impossible, just it seems like a correlation, you know. Vaush, being a woman sucks because the thing that stops you from getting pregnant also lowers your sex drive. Depends on the woman. Also, to be clear, I'm not saying you're bad if you have a low sex drive. There's a difference between having a low sex drive, which is fine. People are literally built different, you know, that's fine. There's a difference between having a low sex drive and being weird about or put off by sex. Does that make any sense? Like, even if you have a low... So let me give you an example. It's going to sound gratuitous, but I mean this, and I think most people would agree if they could see past sort of the juvenility of the topic. If I have a relationship, you know, going on, it's a banging chick, you know, and she doesn't have that high of a sex drive, that is an issue for me. To be fair, you know, but let's say that it wasn't, you know, let's say that it like I'd be okay with sex like once or twice a week or whatever. Like, let's say that's fine. Okay. So, you know, in that context, right, there's a difference between having a GF who would be like kind of weird about being touched and one who you could like go up behind them when they're brushing their teeth and just like fucking aggressively squeeze them all over. You know what I mean? Again, it's a personal preference thing. But you ever get that? Now, I haven't dealt with this personally, but I know because you hear from other people, like stories or whatever, that there are some people, like you're in a relationship with them, but you grab their ass and they get weird about that. That to me... Again, not saying if you don't like that there's something wrong with you, but there's like different layers here that isn't just having a high or a low sex drive. It's more like a general aversion to or discomfort with anything related to sex or intimacy that I see more, at least anecdotally, you know, from het women, but I don't know. I think a lot of it's probably like a mental barrier to overcome, and a lot of it probably just is like authentically not being interested, which is fine. You know, again, personal preferences. I think a lot of it depends on the emotional strength and intimacy of the relationships. Again, I just want to be clear in the fact that like just because I don't like that doesn't mean like if your partner has a lower sex drive or an aversion to sex or whatever, like something that's bothering you, the correct response to this is always to talk with them, not to like shame them for their preferences, you know? Because they got a lower sex drive. What are you gonna do? Fucking assault them? Like, what's, you know, don't be a dipshit, you know? Just talk with them. Talk. A lot of people are so averse to talking. Also a big straight. No, it's not just a big straight person thing. Gay people also don't like talking with each other. That generally happens when you've experienced being abused. Yeah, it's been known to happen for sure. And that's like a get therapy thing, you know? You ever like, this is one of those like, you know, it's always like a touchy subject or whatever, but I haven't, you know, known people like this, you know, sometimes, you know, a person's been assaulted or treated poorly or whatever, them motherfuckers got to go to therapy. You know, if they resist going to therapy, like, you got to tell them to go to therapy. Like, if you've got like a partner who was like assaulted in the past or whatever, sometimes, because people are very averse to like working on those issues because it hurts, and, you know, that's how it is, but it's also kind of necessary. It's how healing works. So, you know, they get weird about that, but holy shit, some of these motherfuckers have to go to therapy. I've said this before, but I think that a lot of TERFs, the women who are active in the TERF movement, have just been in the past raped by men. And a lot of them are straight women who kind of hate men now. And, you know, I don't blame them for that reflexive bias. But if you take a look at their rhetoric and the way they talk about trans women, even the way J.K. Rowling talks about trans women directly, she literally said this. I'm not speculating. This isn't me just like weaving threads together. She just said this, that a lot of her like transphobia is directly stems from like sexual assault and fear of men, you know, which that's not a justification. Go to therapy. Go to therapy. Go to therapy. Go to therapy. It's not our problem, not my problem, not trans people's problem. Go to therapy, you know? Not my go to therapy. You are a billionaire. You can afford therapy. You can afford multiple therapy at the same time. Religious upbringing has a lot of telling girls that sex is bad and they're horse for doing. Yeah. And that's also a kind of trauma, you know, for sure. I actually have an issue with the sex drive stuff. I feel like I have too low of a sex drive and often just don't want to have sex with my boyfriend. I love him more than anything and I'm really attracted to him. But once we get into it, I suddenly just lose it and I feel so bad. Sometimes I just force myself because I feel guilty. I genuinely don't know what to do about it. We talked about it. He's kind of understanding, but I still feel so bad. I mean, if you think there's like an underlying trauma or experience or an issue or whatever that you think is causing that, then, you know, that is something that can be worked on. The plasticity of the brain may lower after you become an adult, but it never goes away. Everything that you are is malleable and can be changed. There's nothing essential to any one's personality. Any memory, belief, attitude, bias, preference you have, they can be changed. Not all of them and exactly the way you want, but most of them in some amount of time. And if it's something you really care about, then it's probably a preference worth changing. If you want to have a higher sex drive, then maybe engage critical analysis of why you feel and how, or fuck, what do they call it? Cognitive behavioral therapy sometimes can be a way of like unrooting trauma or like deassociating certain triggers from certain behaviors. And hey, maybe it's just, you know, maybe it's just general preference, you know? Maybe it's just a matter of like different people are different people. I've been thinking about this and the way conversations are displayed in media as flawlessly following a script, not awkward the way real life is, has really damaged our ability to just talk. Yeah, I've actually said this before. I know this sounds dumb, but I actually think this is one of the reasons why Scott Pilgrim versus the World resonated with so many people. It's because obviously it's kind of like a, you know, horny relationship-oriented manga/movie, whatever. But everyone talks pretty naturalistically in their like jokey anime way. And I think that a lot of people saw that and it like resonated with them a lot more, that like millennial/Gen Z, well, it's not Gen Z, but you know what I mean? Like that millennial kind of, you know, like banter awkwardness felt a lot more real than the normal like romance movie Meet Cute where people just talking little fucking bazinga, you know. Didn't you hear Ramona Flowers ruined a generation of women? Ramona Flowers ruined a generation of men. Ever since Ramona Flowers dropped, ever since that concept dropped, like basically every guy wants to fuck Ramona Flowers, right? Left-leaning guys are open about it. Right-leaning guys will draw like hate comics about women like Ramona Flowers while secretly masturbating to porn videos of girls with blue hair. Everyone wants to fuck Ramona Flowers. That's the point. That's the whole fucking point of the manga, you know? Kind of. You know, as it's just some people are honest with themselves about it, and some people aren't. What is Ramona Flowers? Oh, wow. There's a comic called Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It's very influential. It's good. You should read it. Also, there's a movie, a live-action movie, that's also very good, but very different. And now there's a Netflix show that's very, very, very different and somewhat good. Bro, it's a graphic novel. Get this weeb language out of it. What the fuck do you mean? First of all, manga is just a graphic novel or whatever. Like, it's just Japanese. And also, there's a ton of like anime influence in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Like, it's very obviously designed. Okay, whatever. Vaush, as a kid, I do remember thinking it was weird, and I felt self-conscious about how everyone on TV spoke so much more confidently and without mistakes than me. Yeah, I do think that like naturalistic dialogue is probably something that yeah, I think people gravitate towards it. We have like a bastardized version of it right now in the Marvel movies, where for a time there was an attempt at naturalistic dialogue in like the earlier movies like Iron Man, where people didn't really do like big bombastic speeches. For the most part, like Tony Stark and everyone talked like pretty normally, I think. And then as it's gone on, now Marvel like witticisms have sort of grown out like a bacterial culture into their own fucking hive of, you know, internal tropes and bullshit quips and one-liners. And did that just happen or whatever? But naturalistic dialogue is good, you know? I mean, Breaking Bad was good for that. The Wire is good for that, right? Prestige, like drama TV, tends to be better about that because it's a lot easier to connect with like serious drama when people act like people.